Hi, welcome to Living Every Day with God. I'm Darylyn Williams.
And I'm Jaden Williams.
And our topic today is, what rights are being taken away in our country today? What do you think God meant when he said, love thy neighbor as thyself? I want you to think about this question while we go through all of this. And I'm going to talk about, the God portion. And Javen's going to talk about our political part of what's happening in this country today. And I want you to really think about what I am saying, what God says. And it's going to be from his word. And I want you to really think about this, especially when Javen goes through his portion, because it's very important. Remember these scriptures that I am going to tell you about as he is walking you through what's happening with our rights today. So back to the question, what do you think God meant when he said to love thy neighbor as thyself? I want to start off with Mark chapter 12, 28 to 31. And Jesus is saying this in the NIV version. One of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating. Noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked him, of all the commandments, which is the most important? The most important one, answered Jesus, is this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord of our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this. Love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandments greater than these. These two commandments encompasses all of the 10 commandments and all of Moses' laws. When you love God this way and love your neighbor as yourself, you will do the right thing no matter what. You won't lie. You won't cheat. You won't steal. You won't kill. You won't deceive. You won't disrespect people. You will treat people with respect and compassion. You will want to help people and not turn them away or send them back to their country to be killed or deny them their voices to be heard. In the Old Testament, if someone murdered someone by mistake, they could run to a city of refuge that God set up. For them and the victim's family could not do anything to them once in those cities. Let me state that again. For God set up these cities, refuge cities, for people who killed people by mistake, okay, not intentionally. And it was a safe place for them to run, so the victims of the family could not do anything to them. They were called cities of refuge. In Joshua chapter 20, verse 1 to 6, the NIV version, it goes, Then the Lord said to Joshua, Tell the Israelites to designate the cities of refuge, as I instructed you through Moses, so that anyone who kills a person accidentally and unintentionally may flee there and find protection from the avenger of blood. When they flee to one of these cities, they are to stand in the entrance of the city gate and state their case before the elders of the city. Then the elders are to admit the fugitive into their city and provide a place to live among them. If the avenger of blood comes in pursuit, the elders must not surrender the fugitive, because the fugitive killed their neighbor unintentionally and without malice aforethought. They are to stay in that city until they have stood trial, before the assembly, and until the death of the high priest who is serving at that time. Then they may go back to their own home in the town from which they fled. This is a lot like people asking for a fair trial. Doesn't it sound familiar? Innocent until proven guilty. Sounds a lot like our laws today. Or people fleeing their country due to fear for their lives. People fleeing their country due to fear of their life. And coming to this country and asking for asylum. Can you see where we got our foundation of our laws from? Does it sound familiar anyway here? In Galatians 3, chapter 3, verse 28, the NIV version, it goes, "There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male or female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus." It does not matter who you are. Not at all. When it comes to God, we are all the same to God. In Proverbs chapter 31, verse 8 to 9, the NIV version, it goes, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy." In in Isaiah chapter 1, verse 17, the NIV version, it also goes, "Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow." Another scripture, Leviticus chapter 19, verse 33 to 34, the NIV version. And pay close attention to this one. "When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as a native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God." Okay? This next one, I really want you to take heed of this one. Because this one, when you start to judge people based on how they look, the color of their skin, remember this scripture. In James chapter 2, verse 1 to 4, the NIV version. "My brothers and sisters, believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, must not show favoritism." Can I read that again? "My brothers and sisters, believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, must not show favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and a poor man in filthy old clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes and say, 'Here's a good seat for you,' but you say to the poor man, 'You stand there or sit on the floor by my feet,' have you not discriminated amongst yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts?" Remember this one, especially when you hear Jabin's speech. In Proverbs, another one, Proverbs chapter 14, 31, the NIV version, it goes, "Whoever oppresses the poor, shows contempt for their maker. Whoever is kind to the needy honors God. I want you to really let these scriptures sink in, because this is what God says. And especially let them sink in, and as Javen reads his portion of what is happening with our rights today, remember them.
Alright. Well, alright, I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. We originally thought of doing this video just as a one in a different section, but on further research, you guys can also probably tell where this is going, but on further research, over the past 3 years, there's too much content, too many aspects to get into, where it's basically, just for retrospect, we can do two 30-minute videos on 2017 alone, on just the breaks taken away. A lot of things happened during that thing. We're going to discuss a few of them, but if you also remember, that was the exact time also a lot of Obama's executive orders that helped people were starting to be taken away. It's starting to get rolled back. A lot of times pushed under the media lens because of some of the stuff we might talk about today. But that was basically the start of it, and it just kept going and going and going to the point where there's so much stuff, you can make endless amount of content, and people have made endless amount of content to it.
Can I just say something? Yeah, because of what our current president has been doing on a daily basis, and it's been so out there and extravagant and unbelievable,
Yeah.
a lot of this, like what you just said, it got missed. It went under the radar.
Yep.
Because it overshadowed the stuff that he was messing with and taking away.
Yep. And well, today we're gonna be just focusing on like the two big groups, where it's really the first. They're the ones that are easy pickings. The one was least offense, and if you guys haven't like figured it out by now, we're gonna be talking about immigrants and the poor. Those are the clearest ones that have been constantly hit. Everybody's been hit, but those are very blatant.
It really stands out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're gonna start with the immigrants, which is probably Trump's biggest enemy, other than Democrats, but we know that. Basically, this is what I expected. I mean, he's the guy who was yelling, "Build the wall!" Like build the wall, and no immigrants, and that was like his
campaign.
Yeah, that was his election campaign. So like, all of this is what I expected, and then some. Because it just got like so much more. Like the first time you expect it, but the second, third, and fourth, and then what they keep doing, you're like, wow, alright, I didn't expect this much. As we go into like that, because you remember in 2017, like immediately on his first month, he had the ban on 7 countries.
Oh right.
For 90 days, denying them, and also on the same point. For refugees, it denied them admission for 120 days at the same point and same time. That was all in the same first one. Now, the thing about the 7 countries is they were all Muslim-like countries. So it's easy to have the connotation and to connect the dots that basically it was a racist ban.
Yes, most definitely, yes.
Just a ban just on religion.
Yes.
And the thing about it is that the court saw that too. So that was, if you remember, that was immediately shot down at too.
A judge overturned that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Because it's all countries with Muslim majority. So it's obvious. You're just making a Muslim ban. Yeah, and then in March, that same year, remember, that started in January. Then in March, they brought out the second version. And if anybody remembers, or if this is watched way later, they basically went on the news and were just like, they basically told everybody it's the same thing as the first one, just like supposedly a little bit changed so it could get through legally.
Mm-hmm.
which we all just basically said, what? That's not, It's not the legal problem that was the messed up part. It's the part that they were basically excluding Muslim people.
Right.
So past that again, then that that went through the federal appeals court, and basically, just like the other one, because they both got ended, because the first time the federal appeals court researched that no one from these countries were into terrorist attacks.
Right.
So it wasn't hard for the second time when it's been brought up again, and it's already blatant, and you already said it's basically the same one, just a little bit of changes.
Right.
That one got partially blocked by a federal judge because it was cleared. Now, if you remember in 2017, they waited a little bit. They had to get this right the third time.
Yes.
Now they put through the third time on September 24th was the third one, and this permanently banned restricted people from 5 of the 7 nations. Those banned nations were Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen. On top of that, they also banned people from North Korea. Personally, I didn't check right now because our president has a weird friendship with the North Korean prime minister, but the leader.
Dictator.
Yeah. And other than that, Venezuelan officials, they weren't allowed in. But we can see why that they have problems there right now. So then we're not really big on helping people out. So,
and those laws are still in effect today.
Yeah, all of them are still in effect today. So yeah, all of them actually all the policy is still in effect today. So it basically cancels all types of those people from getting residency or seeking help, or if they need refugees, or the only thing is that people who from those countries who already have their green card and their visas, they're fine.
Okay.
But I highly doubt you expect that to get redone.
Right.
It's not gonna get
under this administration, they're not gonna renew it.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
Which that kind of sucks.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that was the first thing.
Yeah, and we tend to forget all about that because what went on after that was so outrageous.
It became the
Yeah.
normal, which is not necessarily a good thing.
No.
But so next on that, the big thing was, and then this will lead us into 2018. One of the things we basically remember is that he changed asylum laws, but these are more, the asylum laws and asylum seekers are more things that are more recent a little bit. It's just things that lead into something that 2018 happened. The 2 ways he basically done it is the migrant protection protocols, which they basically force anyone who wants to seek asylum in Mexico, anyone who wants to seek asylum in America, you have to stay in Mexico.
Yeah.
Meaning, until the Homeland Security makes a court case for you. Now, I like to state, there's a very low chance that you're gonna get a case in all. We already know there's not a high chance you're gonna get an asylum case anyway, just by our
especially
government.
If you're staying in the country that you may be fleeing for your life.
Yeah.
And,
so,
wow.
That's funny you say that, because on top of that, this can lead in the second one. On top of that, so basically now you're stuck to stay in Mexico, and you can't they want you to stay in Mexico until they say you get a date, which is led with a bunch of bureaucracy, and also it doesn't mean you get asylum if you get the court date. So basically you're just stuck in Mexico. It's forcing them to stay in Mexico. Now the second thing, which that leads into, is that I'm just trying to get the right exact name of it. Alright. So basically the second rule is that they made a change that basically blocked anyone. Alright, so if you were they made a policy that if you were going to reach asylum in America, you could have not, and say you came through another country, and you did not try to seek asylum in that country, you can't seek asylum in America. So, and It's
Is
exactly
that
what
something
you.
like that when
So
we had that caravan coming through? Was it?
Yep, all of them from all of South America.
Yeah, South America. But
the
they
policy
didn't want
done.
to. But that country, they don't, because those
Done.
countries are having problems
Yeah, done.
themselves.
And if
Why would you seek
So-
asylum?
yes.
Wow.
So if
in
you
those countries,
Yup.
when they're basically that's the same type of
You-
country you're running from.
Yeah, basically you're going
Wow.
like it depends. Worse off people. It depends on how many countries you go through. But like if you're going through countries and you're going through a bunch, that means technically what the only way it would really work out is if you got like you try to seek asylum in one country. And also, depending on how many countries it is, this can be a very long process. So basically they're saying anyone but Mexicans from Mexico. But if you go from one country, say you're the country, you got one country and then you go through Mexico. You go to that one country, say you get like denied. Also, due to then you go through Mexico. Now you remember, it's each country you go. You also got to seek asylum in Mexico too,
Right.
and then to get to the what's it called? That's why. So by the time you get to the, do you think after 2 countries that you got denied from seeking asylum, that America's gonna let you in?
Wow.
So like it's basically a fail, because other than like people from seeking asylum in Mexico, because that's the first point you get. So it's
So this is like that scripture in James 2:1-4 where the rich and the poor man comes, and the rich man you give them privilege, because see what it seems like is like what we're doing today in our administration is selecting certain people, but certain people of a darker complexion, brown people, that's the poor man. It's like, yeah, you come in and you sit at my feet, and you don't give them the privilege. But that rich man, which is anybody lighter, of a lighter complexion, very light, gets to come here.
I mean, yeah.
And this is what
plain English,
exactly what God does not want us to do.
Yep. So I like to state that last policy was a reaction to what happened in 2018. Now, the 2018, we all remember the caravan.
Yes.
And basically, this is when Jeff Sessions, the former Attorney General, because, Trump never keeps them, put through the zero policy rules. And if you don't remember what they are, the zero policy basically says if you cross over into the United States illegally, you are automatically a criminal. Now, doesn't matter where your situation is, unless also this is exactly what you think. If you bring your kid over here, you and your kid are criminals. That's the whole point of the zero policy. There's zero tolerance. There's zero tolerance at all. You cross over here, you're a criminal.
So that really doesn't play into anything about seeking asylum. Okay, they're really not. So people coming here seeking asylum.
So there are people that come here want to come over here illegally and aren't seeking asylum. But if you seek asylum, and like if you're trying to seek asylum and you're like, I highly doubt I'll get asylum, you're like, well, let me just cross over.
But wasn't a lot of those people coming here seeking asylum?
Yeah. Oh no, those were.
Okay, but the zero tolerance was they wasn't accepting anyone regardless of that.
So basically, if you got to the border, and you were like seeking asylum, and you can see the policies. Now the ones I just said were things that happened later on, and as a reaction to all these things. But if you came to the border, and the process was, because it's bureaucracy, it was extremely long, and the thing about the zero tolerance also is the thing that comes after that is with the separation of families.
Right.
This is also why, trying to just expedite the process and get over the border might seem like a more favorable thing, but this is where the zero tolerance comes in that. Once you cross over the border without that's illegal, without going through the proper channels, no matter what, there's zero tolerance, you're a criminal. And now, if you bring a kid over, or you bring other people over, you bring it, mostly it'd be like kids. Your kid is a criminal. And they don't gotta, just because of what that happened. And the thing about it is...
But not all of them, all of the people that was in the zero tolerance, and that the people that they took the kids away from.
That was all of them. That was all of them.
Huh?
The family separation was all of them.
Yeah, so it was
illegal,
illegal,
and
seeking asylum, everything. So it really didn't matter.
And the thing about the zero tolerance, it was like a back burner for anybody crossed over illegally. But the family separation thing, a lot of those people, were refugees,
right,
coming to seek asylum,
right,
which is legal
right,
in the United States and is legal around the world. We've all agreed on it, and we all said, being a refugee and want to seek asylum is not illegal. That's around the world.
Mm-hmm.
We've all come to that agreement.
But they didn't care. They were separating kids from parents, no matter
separating
what.
kids from parents and everything like that. Basically,
they were treating them like they were animals, not human beings.
Yeah, like
animals.
Exactly.
With no compassion, no anything.
Yeah. So, you remember the big pushback, because the thing about it is why I state
and disrespect. No compassion, no disrespect, and that goes against all what God.
So the reason why I state the criminal aspect of it, why they made them that whole zero tolerance of being criminal, is because remember, that's basically what Jeff says, and they tried to make us all seem that everybody they have who detained were the criminals. That's why these things come hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we all knew majority of those people were seeking refugees, or were stating we're seeking refugee from countries from South America and Central America that need it. But they were taking them either way. But there was an extreme amount of pushback. Anyone who lived through it remembered it. That was basically all we talked about in 2018 for like the summer and like leading into the fall. So that basically pushed them back to not separating families anymore and taking away that executive order. So now you just try them with the family.
Because the people finally spoke out.
Oh no, because it got horrible.
Yeah.
They had cases where they had little babies less than 1 year old on trial by themselves, somehow supposed to argue their case. That makes no sense whatsoever.
None.
Like literally, they can't even talk, and you're like, oh, they're putting headphones on so they can listen. Be like, oh, well, argue your case.
And just imagine the trauma of a little baby and the little child being separated from their kid, and they have no one to fight for them, and totally feeling lost.
Yep.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That was inhumane, really.
It was just too much, honestly. But the last thing I want to talk about is basically, so this is going to be a little explanation, is the administration, they made changes to the public charge rule. Now, I'm going to tell you what the public charge rule is. And the public charge rule is basically something that stayed since, it's laws on immigration since it goes back to the 1800s. So it's not anything new. It's basically, the basic definition is that an immigrant that would become a long-standing dependent on the government aid to survive. So in plain English, is anyone who's going to be like living off the government and taking government benefits.
Okay.
They don't want an immigrant like that in the country. They want you to
eventually be able to
stand
take
on your own, and not be reliant on the government.
Okay.
And you can see why government would take these standpoints, and this is something that's been taken from the 1800s.
Right.
So this has been something that's been all through our history.
Right. Okay.
But
I'm pretty sure there are like special cases where things do happen that it ends up being that way. Not that not that the person
so it's not
intensely
no
wants to do this.
No, it's just so. But the thing about it is, there was a bunch of government assistance programs that weren't included into this. So that's why it was like worked out. unless you were extreme liability. Now, these are what the new changes implemented.
So our administration today made changes to it.
Yes.
In what, 2018?
Okay. Oh yeah, I don't know exact number, but basically the things that would change it, because they expanded on the types of public benefits that define a public charge.
Okay.
That's the problem. And the ones that define it now include food stamps, subsidized housing, Medicaid, and when it's Medicaid, if you use Medicaid for more than a year on a 3-year basis, so it's run on a three-year basis. So one of those 3 years, if you use Medicaid, one of those 3 years, that will also count as a public charge. On top of that, and this is where it gets a little bit really insane, is that now separate the food stamps, subsidized housing, and Medicaid. We all look at that as, if you got food stamps and you in subsidized housing, you probably have Medicaid. You got all three.
Right.
No. You all think it's it all goes in tandem. That's normal, right?
Yeah, because usually you need all three.
Now, the thing about it is, if you you need to separate all of those three, not bundle them together. If you use more than one, like two of those, so say you got food stamps and subsidized housing, those two, for each month you have all those two, count as 2 months. So, yeah.
So, you can't use them
in tandem.
In tandem? Wow.
That's not what yeah.
What?
And it counts as 2 months.
You can only use one per month?
That's, technically what it is. But usually, you're probably using it for subsidized housing then. Because the housing, or you're using it for food stamps or something like that.
So you can't use them together?
Yeah, see, these are the laws that basically just...
But before could they do that? Or this was the change to the law now?
No, these are the change to the law now.
They changed it now.
Yeah.
Before they could do that.
Yeah.
But now they changed it.
Because the thing about it, before food stamps, subsidized housing, and Medicaid weren't on things that count as a public charge. So this wasn't. They expanded what the definition.
So they put it on public charge.
Yeah,
so
it counts
now,
as a public charge to immigrants.
so they actually, this is all taken away from the needy, the poor.
Yeah, basically, don't be an immigrant and poor.
Wow. But when people first come to this country, they need that help.
Well, not in the past 3 years.
This is why I tell you to remember the scripture, which God says. And it's like, we are not supposed to oppress the poor. We are supposed to help the needy. And this is basically, he's taking that away.
So basically what or
the administration is taking it away.
People who had to get their visas and green cards renewed in this presidency. But basically that would hurt your renewal of your green card or visa. Wow. So, because you're a public charge.
No, I understand that people eventually, is to help people to, when they come to this country, to help them get started, to get on their feet. Or sometimes people are really down on their luck here and they lose their job and everything else and their health starts to suffer. And these are all temporary things until they get their health back, until they get their job back. But now you're telling me when even this could happen to any one of us, because
we're not immigrants.
Well, not immigrants, but you know what I'm saying.
Only if you're in that situation.
If you're in that situation.
Yeah, and you're not an American citizen.
Right. Okay.
There's a lot.
I understand that.
There's a lot of people. And I get that as a country would think that, but this is why we would do. There's certain things we didn't have in these public charges, but now they're adding them and they're expanding them.
All right. So this is basically only talking about immigrants.
Yeah, for right now.
Okay, not people in America, American citizens now.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that right now.
Oh yes, that's true. All right. Okay.
It's the perfect segue anyway.
Okay.
Because it's literally from one aspect to the other, from one talking about poor to just the other aspect.
Okay.
So, but the thing about that is, the second group that we stated are the poor that they take advantage of, and it's very clear. And because just a little basis, how many times do the Trump and his Republican Party talk about how we have all these funding problems, so we got to take it out, benefits for the poor and something like that. Just on an overview. And then they go and make a tax cut to the rich which could have paid for most of it, if not all. So we
Yes.
we already get the mindset of what they're working
That's a
on.
good point there. You did a tax cut that benefits the top 1%. When if they would have taxed the top 1% more, it would have paid for all of these programs
Yeah,
that people need.
yeah, or paid for the ones, or just added money to the ones they do want to put
Right.
in, so they don't have to take from these
Right.
programs.
But they chose to help the people who already have money
Yep.
and
Yeah.
cut
Yeah, and take away to the ones that
the ones who really need it.
Yep. So,
Remember
yeah,
scripture.
yeah.
Hmm.
But basically, this whole, especially when they like control both houses, there's a lot of things that got passed in their own view. So those are especially good
Right,
views.
because this was when
Yeah.
the Republicans
More-
also
Yeah.
controlled the House of Representatives.
Because
So they were just having a ball,
right now,
stripping people
Yeah.
of a lot of things.
like right now, the Democrats and Republicans are basically just batting at each other. So it's just at a stalemate for most of the things, unless they can agree on it. But back then, especially, like one of the things is they really didn't want to put a federal, like the minimum wage raising, if you remember,
Yes.
because there's federal and there's state.
Right.
Now for a state like New York, it raises to like 15 for the city,
Right.
but that's our right. But there's also a federal basis where it's like that's the 725, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That you have to, everybody has to at least do.
Mm-hmm.
You can have it higher, but you cannot have lower.
Right.
Now, the Republicans and Donald Trump were not for raising this federal thing.
Wow. So they were against it.
Yeah, that wasn't something they were really for.
And I don't think I didn't really know that, or I don't know if how many people really knew that DC, our government, the who was leading the charge here.
It makes sense. But it makes sense for the party on that lines. But like this is also something that like it's something that takes a long period of time and a lot of like media presence. It's something that get like passed under unless like it was people the country's main goal. But as we know, when you hear we basically were living in a reality show for these past 3 years, and we're all just watching. So when it comes to actual news and actual information and things like this, we don't really, like, it all flies under. So something like that is something like, oh, well, they weren't really for it, and they're just not going to pass it. They're not even going to bring it up. So, but likely some states have picked up the slack.
Well, all the scriptures that I read earlier is definitely our current administration is doing just the opposite. God says, Proverbs, whoever oppresses the poor shows contempt for their maker.
So,
Proverbs 14:31.
On top of that, I just like to state that the next one, I'm including students because students don't have barely any money. And even if they do got money, it's not their money, it's their parents' money.
Right.
So they included on the aspect of poor because student aid, that's the whole point of it. You don't have money to go to education, so.
And right now, being a parent who a son went to college, I know how expensive colleges are.
Yeah.
And people need help. If you are at a certain income, even when you are at the medium income, college is still a lot.
Yeah,
and people need help.
Especially for middle and lower class people.
Right.
So basically, as you know, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders all pick up on, you should make colleges, you should be able to pay back the college loans. There shouldn't be loans. College should be free. The whole different expansive thing that all the Democratic candidates they fit on a scale of where they're gonna go with that. In comparison, Trump's administration, their view of what they think to help out this whole college debt crisis problem is, I can't believe I'm saying this, limiting the amount you get for your federal loans, of the loan per what the major would be expected to make.
What?
Yeah. So the first one and clear one is example would be just an example. Now, think teachers. You don't necessarily make that much overall.
Right.
You're not going to make someone as much as like a business major or something like that. That's not like on your projected. If you're projected at like as a business major to make 150 a year, which I doubt, that's extremely high on. But just an example, if you're or even like say 100,000 a year, and you're a teacher and you're projected to make 25,000 a year.
So these are the salaries they're talking about after you finish college.
Yeah.
So they base it on your salary when you finish college. So they give you a loan. So if you are a teacher and you only make what, 50,000 a year
or less,
they're going to give you a loan only equivalent to what they think you can pay back.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So this is not something that's implemented yet, but this is something they're like trying to. This is something to combat that. There's also another aspect. Like I have a political science major, but most political science scientists become lawyers. Now, would that also work out if?
Right.
Because there's a lot of majors where they also you can do pre-law.
Right.
But a lot of people know that's not something like they like you to be a little bit have different interests. What do you like to specify in?
Right.
So that makes no sense because then it's like, all right, well. If I say, because I can be a political scientist, but I can also be a lawyer. There's also a lot of majors have different aspects.
Right, and they go into grad school and pursue.
Specify it.
Right.
So now, also, you're going to tell an 18-year-old kid, I might just want to know that's what I want. I don't know exactly what after. So now you're projecting on this 18-year-old kid. Make your decision now.
Right.
And also it stops you from going to other majors. It's gonna because do you think any kid from a lower class is gonna choose a teacher major even if there's a passion? No, I'm gonna go business or something like that.
I'm not going to get a loan.
I'm gonna go for what it is. Which basically, and the thing about it is loans are majority given, if not all, to middle and lower class.
Yes. So you're actually, again,
you're making education a class-based.
They are favoring the top.
Yeah, in turn of making certain majors and
people.
Basically closing doors.
The more fortunate, and again, this administration in making their laws, they have cut back and put a burden and hardship on the middle and the lower income.
No, I like to say this is all what they propose as their idea, and it's not put in action. And I highly doubt this would pass something in the House.
I hope.
But this is what they would think about putting through. So this is
not a law yet, but they want to do it.
No, yeah, but
this
is it's basically it was combating. All right, if Bernie Sanders and all of them are going to say they want free education, or they want no loans, or they want us not to pay back loans.
So this is what they're proposing.
Yeah, this is what they're proposing, which is a little bit insane. And it's basically saying that only upper class, children from upper class citizens
have the right to an education.
Are allowed to be whatever they want to be.
Wow.
Putting a cap and limitation on education for a certain amount of people who need it.
Right. Whoa.
Well, just because of their loan. Or it's not because it wouldn't necessarily put a full-on cap, and that would be the argument because there's other ways to get loans, but then you're pushing them into a predatory market.
Love thy neighbor as thyself.
Adds to the debt. Like literally, the debt's the problem, and now instead of the 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 or whatever you get from, or the higher things you get from from the government.
Right.
You got to get that from like Sally Mae and all these people.
Right.
Adding to the debt that we continue to have.
Yes. And sometimes people don't qualify because of their parental income, and so at least with the federal government, this is something that was like mostly guaranteed.
Yeah. So that's the problem with it. On top of that, what they also took away is the Pell Grant. Now the Pell Grant. Well, no, they didn't take it away. My bad. They took money away from the Pell Grant. What they took away was $2 billion from the Pell Grant.
$2 billion?
Yeah, $2 billion. $2 billion.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and if you know what the Pell Grant Fund is, basically it's a grant and a grant just gives you money and says you don't have to pay it back because you need it.
Right.
And that's for kids.
And that helps out so many people because it's not a loan.
No, it's for kids that are under 50 that their households make less than 50,000.
Yes, which they really need.
I mean, you went to education a lot of grants.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, if it wasn't for that, because I come from a very poor family, and if it wasn't for that, I would not have been able to go to college. And
exactly.
I can speak personally, that was greatly appreciated, and it helped so much. And for, and a lot of people, not everybody wants to go to college, but there are so many people that do, and that helps. And it doesn't mean that you have to go to a big fancy college. No, it could be a city college, but education, even low-income families, all of them want the best for their children. And everybody needs help. Everybody needs some help along the way. And this is what God wants us to do, to love thy neighbor as thyself, to help, to have that compassion, okay? And we need a government that is going to help and have compassion for the people, not just a few, but all, from helping here, and here, to be fair. And that's what God says. It doesn't matter who you are. He does not care who you are, what level. He wants us to help one another at every point in our life, at every stage in our life, and at every level in our life. That is encompassing the love of God in its fullest.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a government says that they are Christian and they are for God, well, you have to lead by example. And stop using God's name if you are not leading by example. Because then that's not God.
Yo. No.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. But no, the funny thing about, when they could go back to the immigration thing, and the last thing we talked about with them trying to basically limit them off of government aid, this brings us into the last thing, because it doesn't matter, because even if you are an American citizen, they've been hindering the programs of that. Basically, it's basically like poverty programs, but it's programs to help benefit people that need it. Now, we remember what happened around Christmas just in 2019 when they said if you didn't work 20 hours, 20 hours a day, like 20 hours a week,
mm-hmm.
you wouldn't that's what they were trying to push. You wouldn't basically be eligible for food stamps. You remember
mm-hmm.
that?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly the type of stuff they were trying to do. Now, these things they're basically trying to hinder, and because they don't want people to rely on the government. They want to use the money on different ways. They don't like that they have to give it up and set away these funds for these things, because to them, it's more just like it's leeching. To them, it's just leeching.
But what happens when people are people move off, okay, they need help temporarily, people move off, but then there's new people come in that need help. So it's always going to be people needing help.
Yeah.
As a group moves on and gets off, then there's another group that comes in and needs help. So it's always a continuous thing.
Yeah, but they don't really care about that. It's just the whole program. It's just because it's an element of money that can be used somewhere else.
Even Jesus says we always will have the poor.
Yeah, what are they gonna do? Like, for the biggest ones they try to push and they try to attack and they try to hinder are like the other ones, food stamps, subsidized housing, which is public housing, Medicaid, that again, and this is the real kicker, CIP. And if you don't know what CIP is, it's basically Child Health Insurance Program. So basically the Medicaid version of it. So now not only is it like, oh, it's bad enough as adults, it's like now it's screwing over kids
Wow.
too.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, like they really have a choice
They want
in
to
this.
take away the health benefits for children.
Yeah, it's to them. It's like because it's how if you can get all these ports, more money we can put to somewhere else. You remember what happened? We usually find out these things like 10, 15 years later. That a lot of times they don't know what they're doing, and they're just putting a bunch of money into things and equipment. They don't know exactly what the full plan is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you remember exactly what happened in the early 2000s, and now they're telling us, like, we really didn't know what we were doing, we were just trying to feel it.
And they spent all that money on a war that we shouldn't have even been in, really.
Yeah.
And no, they didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. But they can't
No.
fund medical help and assistance for children.
No, yeah. And they can't help out their own citizens.
Right.
Like, it's one thing for the immigrants, but you obviously see it's in general for the poor. It's not something they really helping out. And also back to the thing, a lot of those Obama executive orders were things like helping immigration, stopping ISIS from doing raids, also benefits out for people that they're just basically just ending. And that's just two things. Like, that's just on immigrants and the poor. There's a whole bunch of other stuff and a whole bunch of other things
That we'll get to in another video.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's so much that
Too much.
we're finding that is, our rights are being taken away. And so that's why we're going to continue doing these videos to help inform people about what's going on with our rights and what's being taken away in our country, and to let you know what God says about it. Do you want anything that you want to include on?
No,
That's okay.
you got it.
We hope you enjoyed this video.
Mm-hmm.
God bless you all, and we love you, God. And this is for you. And we thank you for always being in each and every one of our lives. And have a blessed day.
Goodbye.
Bye.